Hi, hello. Mm, Today I'm feeling very sleepy to the point where it's paining my head and everything. Still, I decided to let's continue it, else the cycle would break. So today I wanted to learn about isolates. So I have created a snippet code using Cloud. I mostly with Cloud and Gemini. So I have created a snippet code. So let's see what's the code has been generated. We have some notifier. Okay, the received message notifier. Okay, then we have timer. Okay, update message. Welcome, getting ready. Where is this message coming? Somewhere it's might be navigate to hi. What is this? This is not mine. Okay, this. Okay, let's close other widgets. Close this. Okay, so yeah, let's see what has the cloud generated first. We are using trigger provider state mixing, so it will be involving some kind of animation. I suppose we can see here we have string processing and we have init. Okay, animation controller. Okay, so just ignore this animation. So first the animation indicator is there. Build habit task button. Build result section. Okay. So rotation, transition, animation controller, refresh, or it's blue. And turns I have given the animation controller and duration. It's on repeat mode, so it will be turning. I think its name is turn. So here habit task is processing just for blocking the on tab button, I guess. So it's the result section here. Okay, and I have a calculate primes. This will block the UI trade, but I can see properly it's properly doing. So we will see. Prime calculation going fine. So what is this processed? Oh, pixel manipulation. I don't think we are using that. Perform habitats. These are some of the habitats. Okay. I don't think this one was heavy. Okay. So let's try it. It's happening. What's it happening? So let's calculate the prime. Oh, okay. Okay. It's better. It's again Flutter web from trying to render a disposed Flutter engine view. I also want to learn about Flutter engine, so we'll look into it later. For now, let's close it. My PC it's lagging. Let's see what's happening. Studio, it's checking. A lot of RAM. Come on, let's ignore it. No result yet. Let's calculate. There was nothing here. No UI was blocked as I can see. So let's try to block the UI. If I just add one more zero, I think it will cause it to be crash. See, I can see there was a little chunk here. So instead of 1, let's go with 9 and see what happens. So as you can see, it stopped, and it took around 3 seconds to this first frame slash frame. So our UI was stuck for around 3 seconds. So here comes concurrency in the Dart. Let's read concurrency. This page contains a conceptual overview of how concurrent programming works in Dart. It explains the event loop is language features isolates from a high level. For more practical code example of using concurrency in Dart, read this or read isolate. Whereas concurrency Dart refers to both asynchronous APIs, future and stream, and isolates, which allow you to move processes to a separate core. All Dart code runs in isolates, starting in the default main isolate. So yeah, everything is running in isolates. If you are not spawning your own isolates, then it's running in the main isolates, also called as UI thread UI, and optionally expanded to whatever subsequent isolates X pixelated create. When you spawn a new isolate, it has its own isolated memory and its own event loop. So yeah, this is important. Isolate has its own memory, so data is not shared among the isolates. We would need another kind of thing for that to establish a communication. The event loop is what makes asynchronous and concurrent programming possible in Dart. So let's see what's an event loop. Dart runtime model is based on event loop. The event loop is responsible for executing programs code, as collecting processes, events, and more. Okay, so event loop is responsible for executing your program's code. So somehow event loop is the thing which executes our code. Okay. So we will look into it also later on. But for now, let's just keep on reading. As your applications runs, all events are added to a queue. Okay. Call the event queue. Event can be anything from request to reprint the URL to user tabs, IO, because your app can't predict what order events will happen. So everything orders, they are queued at a time. So in Flutter, everything goes in order. If you increase any navigation, any tabs or anything, it will. The way event loop answer resemble this code. While wait for event process next event. Okay. This example event loop is synchronous and runs on a single thread. Okay. It runs on a single thread. However, most art applications need to do more than one thing at a time. For example, a client application might need to execute an HTTP request while also listening for user to tap a button. To handle this, Dart offers many async APIs like future streams, async await. These APIs are built around this event loop. Okay, that's why APIs are getting async and await. Okay, because event loop is a synchronous. When this code reaches the event loop, it immediately calls the first class HTTP get and returns a future. It also tells event loop to hold on to the callback in the then and clouds until the HTTP request resolves. When that happens, it should create that callback, passing the result of the request as an argument. Repent request, HTTP request, future event loop, on HTTP response callback, on tap callback handler. ये इनिशियल था, HTTP रिक्वेस्ट आया, रिपेंट अदर कुछ होगा, ठीक है, और HTTP से वो रिटर्न करेगा फ्यूचर और इस चीज़ को वो करेगा. कुछ टाइम के बाद क्या HTTP का रिस्पॉन्स आया एंड कुछ क्लिक हुआ, तो ये ऑन HTTP रिस्पॉन्स कॉलबैक को रिटर्न कर देगा. All the asynchronous events and such as streams object. Okay, ये यहाँ पे रखता है, फिर यहाँ से रिटर्न करता है जो भी है। दिस सेक्शन समराइजेज डिफरेंट टाइप्स ऑफ सिंटैक्सेस ऑफ एस programming in Dart. If you're already in, you can when select future. A future means the results of asynchronous operation that will eventually complete with a value or an error. So future can have a value or it can have error. Let's see. Reading file async string file name read as string returns a feature, then structure to resolve, and then okay, reads file, then what async event provides an alternative way to assign any user agent. For example, here we are using then. Okay, if we don't something, example some record box while waiting for file json data use the data read async. Here is but where was string read file async. I think I think this was async. Okay, let's see. Yes, okay, but we change the highlighter to make it async. First, to use await, we need to make the function async. Read file async, as I said, it was an async operation. Okay, read a string, as I said here. We will make it async, and we have to await here also, and we have to return a future. The main function uses the await. Such as event handler as a while it to the effect of converting future data into a string. So this file data is now a proper string because we have used await here. Using await removes the future from here and takes the internal one. Okay. So as a result, we have the implicit text string. Only the file. Okay. This is important. So let's see how it's going internally. As the following figure shows, the Dart code functions while reading as string, executes non-Dart code in either the Dart runtime or operating system. Once read as string returns a value, Dart code execution resumes. Okay, so Dart app start await results app exist non-Dart. Okay, so this is synchronous because it's happening from other thing. It has to wait to get from here. Dart also supports asynchronous code in the form of streams. Actually, I didn't understand here what's happening, but I can get at it. The app starts is a synchronous, then it goes read. Then this is a asynchronous process, and we are converting it to a synchronous then result. Okay. We have stream periodic. Okay, we created our own stream which returns annually every six. Let's see, it returns some value. Uh, it's always returning square. Await for and yield. Await for is a type of for loop that executes its subsequent iteration of the loop as new values are provided. In other words, it's used to loop over stream in this example. So await is a type of for loop. Await for is a type of for loop. Okay. We can also iterate over a stream. Okay, let's focus on the main topic, isolates. Dart support concurrency via isolates in addition to asynchronous APIs. Most modern devices have multi-core CPU, but I have read here an issue that Dart run only on single core. Let's see. Dart runs sorry Flutter runs only on one core GitHub resource. Let's see, on CPU core. This is closed. We should just reland. What's okay? Why did they close it? Oh, widen CPU affinity. Auto submit most Flutter means what's up due to see the problems on. Okay, so some devices have this known as CPU affinity that runs on which CPU core. Like even if we have multiple cores in our device, then it not necessarily that all the cores are same efficient and fast. So Flutter by default runs on the fastest core. So even if you are using multi-threading or isolates, it will be running on the fastest core. I am not so sure if the team has made any changes on this or not. So keep that in mind if you face something in the isolates. So concurrency on the web is different. Okay, we will learn about it later. Multiple developers sometimes use shared memory threading concurrently. However, the CC is inherently complicated code. Instead of threads, all Dart code runs inside isolates. Using isolates, your Dart code can perform multiple independent tasks at once using additional processor cores if they are available. Isolates are like threads or processor, but each isolate has its own memory and running an event loop. Even the event loop is different. Each isolate has its own global field, ensuring that none of the state in isolate accessible from any other isolates. Isolates can communicate to each other via message passing. No shared state between isolates means current like mutex log declaration bot occur or the thing will break its thread safety. That said, isolates don't prevent race condition altogether from concern on about actor model. We will learn about this later. The main isolates. It's running. Its event loop is there. Painting. Okay. Even a single isolate function smoothly before continuing. The isolate's life cycle runs him optionally respond to your simple running some Dart code such as main function. This Dart code might register some event listener when the okay it has event loop, but not necessarily that everything goes in. The means event queue might contain repent request and notification of type and other events. For example, let's say okay main can have many things. Event handling happens on the main isolates after main isolate to the main exits. Event handling happens on the main isolate after main exits. Event handling happens in the following figure. The main exits, the main isolates handle the first event. After that, the main isolate handles the tap event. First repent, after that the main isolate tab, then repent event, then repent event. If a asynchronous operation takes too much processing time, the app can become unresponsive. Yeah, okay. Here in the following figure, the tab handling cost takes too long. So subsequent version handle too long, they might appear to be. So suppose this is our event loop and this is isolates. Okay, so first one done. The process tab is taking some more time. Okay, so the our thread isolates or the screen would look stuck janky animation as you can say. Okay, so what we are doing here, if your app becomes unresponsive due to a time-consuming computation, parsing a JSON file, for example, consider offloading that computation to a worker isolate, often called a background worker. Worker is nothing more but just worker isolates. A common case shown in the following example is spawning simple worker isolate that performs a computation and then exits. The worker isolate returns its result in a message when it exits. To perform I/O, set timers and more. It has its own memory and doesn't share any state with the mother. The worker isolate can block without affecting other isolates. But I didn't get here. So, like, how will the main UI will know, or till this is returning, this event will occur or what? So, we will see this. There are two ways to use isolates. So, to perform a single computation thread to create isolate that will handle multiple messages over time or a background worker for long live isolates, read the isolate path. But we will be using isolate that run only. So, isolate dot run, so it can compute very simple, uh, where was it, calculate primes, find primes up to this. So what it is telling me that I can use a wait. If I am using a wait, then I have to add a sync. That is done. And I can isolate dot run, isolate dot run. Okay, let's see if it. Uh, let's see. Okay, so the UI was not blocked here. Okay, but I can see there is some slit is not supported on the web. Very good, very good. But at a time I am not able to run it on the emulator because I don't have a very good laptop. But let's still try it running on an Android device. Bolo. I was working on this. Let's close this now. So for now, performance and isolate groups. When an isolate calls isolate.spawn, the two isolates have the same executable code and are in the same isolate. Okay. When an isolate calls the isolate spawn, the two isolates have the same executable code and are in the same isolate groups. The isolates groups enable performance optimizations such as sharing code. A new isolate immediately runs the code on by the isolate group. Also, isolate exists work only when the isolates are in the same isolate group. Okay, okay. I can see from here that everything would be in the main isolate then. But let's see. We set up a new with a copy that so much slower than the spawn and than the new isolate. Isn't it's a spawner isolates group. Another performance consequence is that message passing is slower when Isolates, okay. Isolates are threat. It would be reasonable to expect isolates to behave like threat, but that isn't the case. Each isolate has its own state. That none of state is in isolate is accessible from any other isolate. Therefore, isolates have their limited access to their own memory. For example, if the application with global mutable variable, that variable will be, let's close it. See, it's not running. A variable is separated if emitted when a special it will remain untouched in the main isolate. This is how isolates are meant to function, and it's important to keep in mind isolates. These are message type. Okay, synchronous blocking communication between isolates. There is a limited number of isolates that can run in parallel. The limit does not affect the standard asynchronous communication between isolates, but you can have hundreds of isolates running concurrently and making progress. Isolates are scheduled on the CPU in round robin fashion. Okay, round robin fashion and L2 each of another of. Isolates can only communicate synchronously outside of pure dot using C Wi-Fi to do so. Attempting to isolates by blocking 5 may result in deadlock if the number of isolates is over unless a special care is taken. The limit is not hard-coded to a particular number. It's isolated based on dot VM heap size and available to the data application. To avoid this switching, the C code performance synchronous need to have leave the current isolates before re-entering its current dot. Okay. Let's see on the wave. The Dart web programmer does not support isolate. The Dart web can use web workers to run script in background, similar to isolate. That is a component of isolates. For instance, when web workers are written thread, the copy of data from data copy can be switched to the last message. Isolate do the same but provide them more efficiently. I just leave it. We will run web only. Okay, let's read what's on the web. What's on the web? What's on the web? What's on the web? What's on the web? What's the web? Dot web platform. Some JavaScript. Mm, mm, what was there on the web? I just wrote there. All web orchestration web workers. It's somewhat different. Okay, so let end the stream today here with some knowledge only, not so in-depth knowledge. We will continue this tomorrow.